Kaushal Patel, luxury realtor in America's finest city. Your dream home in paradise is waiting. Buying your piece of paradise with Kaushal. Presented on IQ Podcast at Attorney King Studios. Sponsored by Oscar Gastelum, president of Mortgage Hub Incorporated. MortgageHub.loans. Now, Kaushal Patel.
Hope you're having a great day, great week, all of the above. I'm Kaushal Patel with Windermere Homes Estates. Welcome to my podcast, Buying Your Piece of Paradise with Kaushal. And we are so lucky to live in paradise, another beautiful sunny day in San Diego, and so fortunate to call this home. To give us a snapshot of how the real estate market is doing overall in America's finest city as we kick off 2021, I can't believe we got here. I have Josh Old joining us today. He's a managing analyst with the CoStar Group who studied the San Diego market for about 20 years. And Josh, most of us in the commercial real estate space are familiar with CoStar. For those who aren't, tell us about what you guys do.
CoStar is a data aggregator. If you're not familiar with CoStar, you're probably more familiar with one of the several companies under our umbrella, from apartments.com to HomeSnap. We collect data, we analyze data, and we provide sort of solutions for clients to be able to make the best informed decisions that they can.
I'm really excited to hear what you have to say and what you have to share with us, Josh. So you recently wrote an article basically kind of talking about the resiliency of the apartment market in San Diego. And anybody who's driven by downtown has seen all the cranes. Most of all of those cranes are apartment buildings being built. And we have some 8,200 apartments, 8,200 apartment units under construction. And in your opinion, you don't think they're going to be sitting empty for long. Now, why is that?
I don't think they will. People need a place to live. 8,200 is a lot, but it's probably about half of what we should actually be building. So, sort of the adage, if you build it, they will come. And that's certainly been the case over the last several years. And it's certainly been the case downtown. Most of the new properties that deliver there don't have to wait too long before they're filled. Demand is pretty steady and pretty strong. And then you filter out to the suburbs more, where there's probably less vertical development, more horizontal development. Absorption and demand is probably a little bit less than it is downtown, just because of the cultural amenities and everything that downtown has to offer. But people are still filtering out the suburbs, particularly now amid the pandemic. We've definitely seen a shift of people just spreading out throughout San Diego a little bit more now. If you're working at home, you need more space, and you get more space out in the suburbs.
Now, have you noticed any changes regarding renter preference or demand during COVID?
Yeah, we've seen sort of people wanting bigger apartments and more green space. If you're living in an area where you're accustomed to going out and going to clubs and theaters, and those are largely closed right now. So people are going where they can get more affordable apartments, especially if you don't have to, if you had been, working in UTC and you don't have to go into your office every day. Maybe you don't have to work in or live in UTC. If you're working at home, maybe you can go out to Chula Vista, where you can get an apartment $700 or $800 a month cheaper, a little bit more room to spread out. Your kids are in the next room taking their elementary school classes or whatever. So we definitely have seen that shift in demand toward more affordable areas of the market, whether it's North County or Chula Vista, out in East County, where you can just spread out and get more affordable rentals and not have to worry about sitting in traffic every single day.
But when we're talking about these downtown rentals, they're really not affordable.
Well, I guess it depends on what the demographic you're looking at is. The average one bedroom is about $2,600 or $2,700. Two bedrooms are a little over $3,000. You can probably get by without a car downtown, so you can move around. You get a trolley. Affordability, well, I guess it depends on who's asking. But we have seen a little bit more landlords that are willing to sort of, your income to rent ratio is a little bit higher downtown. You see them tipping at 40 to 50%, whereas historically it's closer to 30%. So people are, they're a little less affordable, in that regard, but people are still taking them down. People are chasing concessions too, because a lot of those communities are offering 2 months of free rent. And if you can get 2 months of free rent, that's going to make your rent a lot more affordable throughout the year.
Now, are all of these apartments expected to be converted into condos in 10 years like we've seen in some buildings downtown?
I don't think so. Very few new properties that are being built right now are built on condo maps. That was something we saw probably more heading into the Great Recession. Maybe 2006 and 7, you saw a lot of condo maps being out there on projects that are being converted to those. There's less of that now, and I think part of that is just because the value of apartments right now is so high. So whether you're selling an apartment community versus whether you're selling an individual condo, you're getting a really high price per unit for an apartment, that's maybe comparable to what you would get for a condo. So it maybe doesn't make sense to go through that, getting a condo map and converting them to that.
And now moving over to the commercial space, which is really interesting. We know that the office buildings have been struggling for months now. How bad is it?
Well, it's not good, to put it simply. I mean, you're looking at the best data that we can find. It's probably in the neighborhood of about 20 to 25% of office using employers are actually working in offices right now. So you're looking at 75% of that workforce is at home to some degree. So that's going to make it difficult to fill offices. So you have a lot more tenants that are sort of reevaluating their space needs, sort of instead of figuring out ways to expand or sign new leases, they're renewing, sort of kicking the can down the road a little bit before they can figure out how much space they're going to need. And it's not going to be probably very surprising that once we have a wide distribution of a vaccine, that you're probably going to find there's going to be more of part-time movement in and out of offices. If you've successfully moved into telecommuting, do you really need to bring back 100% of your workforce 5 days a week? Or can you perhaps shuffle them in, maybe have a smaller footprint to accommodate your workforce? And I would not be surprised if that's going to be the case. So not only that, then you're seeing sublet space on the rise. You're seeing companies that have signed leases in 2020 before even taking possession of them, putting the space back on the market for sublease. So that's flooding into the market as well. So that's, beyond companies vacating space, they are just more sublet space. And it's just sort of a glut of more available office space hitting the market right now.
And with our pandemic, retail sales have also been down. Any silver lining there?
If you're an opportunistic investor with some deep pockets, maybe you can get a deal right now, but you're also taking some risk, especially with the shutdown orders as they are, at 25% capacity for so many retailers. How long are you going to be able to remain in business? You've been doing this for almost 10 months right now. You're coming out of another order that just got lifted to some degree, but I think we're still in the purple tier in San Diego right now. So you're still at a diminished capacity. As far as the sales are concerned, it looks like maybe the silver lining is you're going to have triple net investments, 1031 exchanges, safe, credit-worthy tenants, drugstores, grocery stores, those that have always been essential retailers since the pandemic hit San Diego. Those are the ones that look like they have been, at least have the most legs or at least the most demand right now.
Well, there is a silver lining. It's called industrial, right? They have taken off and very stable. How does the future look for industrial? And has industrial been doing well for years, or the last 2 years it's really taken off?
It's been a really stable market for several years, but I think we've seen it sort of accelerate here, not only in San Diego, but across the entire country since the pandemic hit, just because you have, and it's largely the distribution space, warehousing space, as e-commerce has picked up considerably. Obviously, who needs to go to a grocery store when you can have it delivered to your house over the past, and that's part of this changing preferences among people across the country, or in San Diego in particular. Are you going to be going back to the grocery store every time you need to pick something up, or are you just going to have it delivered to your house? So industrial tenants and landlords are sort of taking advantage of this newfound demand among the changing preferences of the population right now. But it's not only that, it's also our huge life science industry. We have probably one of the top 3 strongest life science hubs in the entire country behind Boston, the Bay Area. So you have a lot of those companies, in particular in the past year, that have just been in huge expansion mode, taking advantage of money, coming in from the government to find vaccines and COVID testing kits and whatnot. So you have expansions from North County and Carlsbad to Sorrento Mesa and Torrey Pines. And then you have the big distribution companies taking down space in Otay Mesa. So Amazon's building 3.3 million square foot facility down there next to the border for cross-border transportation. So it's a good time. And especially Amazon's been making headlines left and right.
I was going to say that's really the only client you need, because Amazon, Jeff Bezos is on the top of that, looking for space. If you just had one client, and you would be successful just having him buying up all the land and building warehouses.
Yeah, and I think they've targeted San Diego as one of their sort of innovation hubs across the country, targeted for expansion, not just for the distribution side of things, but also for the technical side of things, for their software architects, for instance. I know they, beyond just adding distribution space or last mile facilities in 2020, they also tacked on another 50,000 square feet in UTC for at Campus Point to build out more of their technical side of things in San Diego.
That's so exciting. We have just so many exciting projects, redevelopment projects, and we'll talk about that a little later. But let's finish out the whole commercial space with multifamily investments. They're also very hot right now.
Yeah, it's different, right? 2020 entered and you had a rent cap in place for the first time, and what that was going to do to the value add market. And here you then had a pandemic and an eviction moratorium. So it's a difficult sort of, minefield to navigate right now, but there are deals out there. San Diego is going to be supply constrained forever. That's never going to change. We have Camp Pendleton to the north. We have an international board to the south. We have an ocean to the west. There's only so many places you can build. And
the Navy, let's not let Camp Pendleton, the Marines, but we got the Navy, and we have so many. I mean, that right there, the military, General Dynamics, all of this biotech that's not only here, but coming here, IQ HQ headquarters, they were able to raise a couple $2 billion in just a matter of a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So much excitement. I
know. And that's going to go a long way to transforming sort of the employment structure of downtown San Diego with IQHQ's rad development. That's going to be pretty impressive. 1.1 million square feet lab campus, I think it is, right along the water.
Yes, I know. And really, I think there's only Boston. Are they even along the water there?
I know this is going to be the biggest waterfront development on the West Coast, and I think they do some in Boston. I'm not entirely sure, but this will be the biggest waterfront development out here.
Yeah, I mean, it's about time scientists, get out and then see the water instead of just being in their labs working so hard, right? They should be able to, enjoy the beauty that Paradise has to offer.
One of the perks, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, one of the issues, Josh, that San Diego, as we continue to face, is the shortage, right? We need to build more homes, more condos, more living space. How feasible is it to convert, all this empty, like all these office buildings, right, that are just sitting empty, or some of these hotels into living space?
I think it's viable in some regards. Orange County, for instance, you go up there was a big project in the city of Orange that just converted from an office tower into apartment units. I think that finished up in maybe this month, actually, or just in the last couple months. That does present an opportunity, just the same as I think you could have an opportunity for sort of vacant anchors at shopping malls. You don't have too many 150,000 square foot retail tenants that are, pounding down doors to take a big anchor space, and that could be easily converted probably for the into apartments. You already have the infrastructure in place. Offices, hotels, that's also doable. It was the Spreckles building that just finished its conversion at 625 Broadway last year. I think it's about 250 units down there. It finished in February. So that's one instance of an office going over to apartment units.
Yeah, so we'll just have to wait and see. But hopefully, those landlords are thinking progressively and thinking forward and thinking, hey, there's a problem here. We could be the solution.
Absolutely. And you're going to probably find more office landlords that are willing to take those chances, probably the longer their space sits vacant, especially if most of their building is vacant. And it could make sense. And you could find some, you have a lot of investors and developers that are very interested in downtown San Diego in particular, and you could find that they might, if you don't have to go and worry about a couple years of going through entitlements and red tape and buildings already there, maybe it's a lot easier to convert than starting from scratch.
Yeah, makes sense to me. We just need them to get on board too. So we touched on this earlier. How does the overall redevelopment picture for San Diego look?
Well, you have projects going up from the downtown, I think, is the most interesting area, obviously, just because it's sort of that live, work, play environment that's really missing the work aspect, at least the work aspect now, the trendy jobs that are pulling in the younger employees that want to, they don't want to drive a car. They just they have their apartment, they have their restaurants and their theaters, and then their office is a couple blocks away. So you have the Horton Plaza redevelopment, which is going to be pretty fascinating to see how that completely transforms, in my opinion, sort of that downtown core in the gas lamp area. And what that's going to do is sort of spread out onto Broadway a little bit. That's going to be interesting. And Chula Vista, you look at the redevelopment down there along the South Bay and the plans that they have for more hotels and more office.
Yeah.
So, it could definitely spread out and perhaps provide a little bit of a bigger employment boost down in the South Bay and down in Chula Vista for sure. And then you get out to, where's some other redevelopments going on that are pretty substantial? You go down to Point Loma down in my neighborhood when I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to get to the freeways from where I live if they start to actually build out the sports arena with a couple thousand apartment units and mixed-use development with offices and retail there too.
Yeah, we'll have to just make sure the ingress and egress is all figured out right there.
Yeah, I think one of the ideas I've heard is that perhaps you actually have a tunnel underneath the to push cars out to the freeway to get them out of the sports arena areas to sort of figure out a way to free up traffic in that area because it's going to be tough.
Yeah.
Because they just approved the master plan out there, I think about 2 years ago, that would add about 20,000 people and 10,000 total housing units to that area. And I don't really know where they'd put them all.
Yeah. That's going to be that's going to have city planners scratching their heads. So we'll let them deal with that. But there, you talked about how there are so many projects, but which one, if you had to pick one, and all of them, which one do you think is going to have the biggest impact? Do you think it's going to be HQ's headquarters? Do you think it's going to be RAD?
I think so, just because it's going to change the perception of downtown. You don't have that tech presence, that life science presence. All that's up in the UTC area, Sorrento Mesa, Torrey Pines, you get up to Carlsbad. And then when you look at census data, it sort of makes sense. You have people with STEM degrees, that's where they live. They live in North County. They live up above the split on the 805 and the 5. So this is going to be an interesting test, but it's IQHQ is led by leaders who have done this before and they know what they're doing. So I would imagine that they're going to probably try to rope in a big anchor, probably a pharmaceutical company that's currently does not have a substantial footprint in San Diego, if one at all. And that's what it's going to take to probably bring some other, some tailwinds behind it. And if you get one of those, it's going to bring everybody, and that'll change the perception of downtown and what it can be. And that could easily translate to the campus at Horton, that redevelopment as well. It's not life science per se, more of a technical development. But the challenge that downtown has is that, for instance, when Apple, they've signed 4 leases, I think, since the end of 2018. It's all up in UTC. They have one in Rancho Bernardo as well. So like the campus at Horton would have been ideal. That's what they want. They want an Apple type of project or an Apple type of tenant, but Apples and the Amazons, they're still choosing a little bit more north of there. So IQHQ, they've roped in a tenant that's going to absolutely change downtown's perception and I think bring a lot more tenants with them.
Are there any rumors? Johnson & Johnson. I mean, which big pharma company, are there any top 3 that are vying for it? I mean, have you heard anything?
The name I've heard is Bristol, thrown around a little bit. I guess, I'm not exactly sure who it's going to be, but it's going to probably take one of those companies to really bring a bunch of other companies along with them.
Yeah, I would. I'm a loyal and lover of downtown San Diego, have been for more than a decade, and I believe in it. So it's just exciting, for everyone to see what is going to happen. There's also, you've heard of Petco, doing the East Village. It's the East Village quarter. So that's another. And then, Gaff is working on the aquarium, and then Manchester also, he has another hotel. So there's so many projects downtown, So, and then we haven't even touched on the Shell. If you haven't driven by or taken a jog, well, you can't really drive there, but you can jog or take your scooter and go and see the Shell. I mean, it's so beautiful, and I can't, it has seating for 10,000, and to get some of wouldn't it be great to watch Barbra Streisand or some of these artists who probably would never have come to San Diego because there really wasn't a venue, for them.
That's perfect, isn't it?
Yeah. So John Legends, the Barbra Streisands of the world, please consider your next concert when it's safe to do so. I think they're expecting the Shell to open next summer. So hopefully, fingers crossed, that will still happen.
Because it was originally supposed to be this past summer, right?
It was supposed to be this past summer. So a lot of exciting things going on downtown and all across San Diego. Before we wrap up, I was listening to your CEO, Andy Florence, talking to Inman News this week, and CoStar recently bought HomeSnap. What do you feel is a strategy for CoStar getting into the residential real estate space, which they've kind of already done with the apartments.com and then houses.com as well, right?
Well, no, we have apartments.com, and then we have several other multifamily companies that we've acquired over the last several years. It makes sense. We cover apartment units across the country. Why not get more into the residential so we can provide just the data covering the entire residential market from a single family house or a condo all the way up to a 1,000-unit apartment community. So that way you can actually see everything that's happening in the market. You can make decisions on, maybe an apartment community, but you also need to fill in the entire picture with residential. And it makes sense to be able to provide that fuller picture with the residential aspect of it.
And because you guys already have figured it out and you do it on a wide scale globally, I mean, CoStar is the industry leader when it comes to all this, data. And so it would just make sense. Why not move into the residential space and make it easier for home buyers and agents such as myself?
Yeah, and clients are going to just have more opportunities to look at more data and make more informed decisions, I think, with all of these companies under our umbrella who can just provide sort of not only the breadth of data, but sort of the cutting edge technology that goes with it.
Kaushal, managing analyst with CoStar, thank you so much for your time and your insight. This was awesome. I really enjoyed it, and hopefully our listeners will learn something. And that's always my, hope for every time I have a podcast is, if you listen to it and you've learned something, then my job is done. Remember, if you are looking to buy or sell, my team would love to help you make it a seamless process. Keep in mind that interest rates are at historic lows and they will be climbing up. We're not sure when. This isn't going to last forever. So if you have any questions about refinancing or finally moving out of that rental that you've been hanging out in for longer than you should, just give us a call. It's all starts with a conversation. Number is 858-244-3298. Again, that number is 858-244-3298. Have a blessed day.